Hey, I'm back, feeling fine, feeling good. Been enjoying my week so far, and I just went to a political rally for young progressive youth, and we were trying to promote and trying to bring awareness to the fact that youth should be actively engaged in the political process. We tried to get young ones to make sure that they have their PVC, to put up talking points to them about why it's important to be actively involved in making decisions that will drive our nation forward. And in doing so, one of the biggest things that came up, one of the biggest issues that people wanted to talk about, and I think it's really appropriate, is the fact that a lot of youth feel like they're put in the position where their birthright has been stolen. And what do I mean by that? It means that for years and years and years, we have been robbing one generation, Peter, to pay for another generation, Paul, right? And so the generation ahead of us leverages our future to enjoy themselves. The generation ahead of them leverages their future to enjoy themselves. And the question is, when will it stop? And so you start to see a lot of youth not realizing that they should follow the right path and get into the political process and make sure that they take accountability and they also make leaders accountable. But instead, they're following the footsteps of those leaders, or they're following the footsteps of. So I don't even want to call them leaders. I would call them. I don't even want to call them honorables. I just call them people who have decided to chop their own. And when they see that kind of lavish lifestyle by any means necessary, they want to enjoy themselves too. And you see them getting into Yahoo. I feel like it started with politicians using force and violence to get into seats, to now and to get money, to now being that they started using drug money to, get what they want. From drug money, they went to Yahoo. But now from Yahoo, they're moving to rituals. And it means that, and it just shows that people don't care. Nobody is asking, I think I said in the previous video, that nobody asks the why. How did you get it? Why? Ask the big questions. Now everybody just wants to hammer by force. They just want to get what they want by force. But the question is why? And I feel like the answer is that it's because we put undue pressure on our youth. We put undue pressure. You must have a house by age 25. You must have a house before you have a job, or before you even graduate. Like, people put so much pressure on what you look like, so much pressure on what car you drive, so much pressure on how much money you spend, that they don't understand that for many people, they worked hard to get there. What they see is the Yahoo boys. What they see is the drug barons turned politicians. What they see is the, people who did fraud overseas and then now come back to Nigeria and open businesses. They see these people who have gotten ill-gotten wealth, being praised, being seen as larger than life, given chieftaincy titles. So if that's the case, then why do you expect them to do what you didn't do? But the cycle has to break somehow and in some way. And I think that, I said that social media is debunking the same social media that was praising people with all this money. It's the same social media that's going to bring them down and start asking them questions as to why and how. And you're seeing it because everybody is asking questions. Immediately, you hear that somebody has gotten some funds. You want to ask, where did they get that money from? Is it legitimate? Is it from singing? Is it from a business? Where is that money coming from? And it's unfortunate because it shouldn't be social media that asks those questions. It should be their parents. It should be their friends. It should be society, and not just some random strangers online, but you start somewhere. And I hope that if we're asking enough questions and if people are afraid enough that, okay, if you can kill your friend for money rituals, then you can surely kill, you know, your sibling, or you can surely kill your girlfriend, or you can surely kill your parents for money rituals, then nobody is actually safe. And so with that, you now start to see that people are taking it more seriously. You now start to see that people become less ostentatious and more reserved. This lao spending Niger culture should start to take a turn to become more humble, to become more discreet, because the truth of the matter is that most Nigerians didn't get their money legitimately. And sometimes it's because of who you know. So the truth of the matter is that in a society where we're a social culture, everything is about who you know, what circles that you're in. And to be in those circles, you must have money. I remember when a cousin of mine, I just moved to Nigeria, and a cousin took me to a party, and she wanted me to meet her friends, and she's so sweet and she's amazing. But when she introduced me, she introduced me with my name, and her friends were like, "Oh, uh, you know." And then when she mentioned who my dad was, not like my dad is anybody big. Well, my dad is kind of a big deal, but not like he's not Bill Gates or anything like that. But he's a big deal to me. But they were like, "Oh, Prof's daughter." Oh, and I was so shocked because it was like, okay, you don't generally. I mean, growing up in the U.S., you genuinely want to meet somebody, or you genuinely want to get to know someone, unless you live in New York or L.A. Then you have this air of pretentiousness, around you. But for the most part, I mean, I'm a small town girl. I grew up in a small town, but in those places, you genuinely want to get to know someone. Oh, hi. Oh, that's nice. Nice to know you. Nice to meet you. But it wasn't that. And I guess Lagos, with it being a big city, it has that kind of vibe. But the whole focus is on who you are, what you have, not on what you have worked hard to accomplish, but what they perceive you to have. And I'm pretty simple, and I try to be low key as much as possible. And I know that when I go places and I have as much money to spend as somebody else, because don't have the weight that a big madame has, or I did not come and drop my bag like this, or do something just a bit, elitist, then people behave differently. Then when they know who you are, not that it matters, they now start to be like, oh my God, and I think it's so wrong. Can you not just like people for who they are? Can you not treat people like human beings because they are human? I mean, if someone has done something that makes them to seem less human, like maybe they've murdered the child or something like that, I understand. But you are praising people who just appear to be well put together, but they're doing all sorts of rubbish. You see old women even kneel down to greet young men because they're driving a G-Wagon. I think for a Yoruba person, I feel like that's the height of hypocrisy. I really do. And people may say, oh no, that's, just how. No, it's wrong. And until we stop hailing, big people and allowing them to even get away with rubbish, you see senators beat security guards and then expect the same senator to be praised. He shouldn't be praised. He should be held accountable. Or you see a House of Reps member slap a woman on CCTV camera, and you expect them to be praised. No, I mean, when you see the person, you should recoil with like a sense of disgust, but it doesn't happen. For me, I feel like if we want to get past this whole issue of young people engaging in rituals, young people engaging in Yahoo or other things, then we need to start calling a thing, number one. Number two, we need to start having compassion for our fellow human beings. And number three, we need to make society in such a way where we don't look down on other people. I feel like, especially government, once government decides to make things available to everybody, education available to everybody, healthcare available to everybody, then you start to see that there is more of a level playing field, and and you no longer can tell who has what. I mean, I love the fact that even fast fashion has helped people to kind of level the playing field. So people can look amazing and decent on a budget, you know. But I think that when our country can get into the textiles game, when we can start to produce phones, when we can start to make food prices more affordable, when we can start to, also make sure that education is widely available to everyone, up to university, not just primary and secondary school, then you'll start to see that when everybody's educated, it becomes less of a thing. When everybody has access to financing for a business, and they are trained in entrepreneurship to be able to maintain that business, then you see that things will start to improve and a bulging middle class will start to come. And that bulging middle class will help to unify and make things easier for all. And you see that money is shared, all around. But until then, we're just talking to ourselves, I guess. And we're beating a dead horse because those who have the ability to do something know that these are the things that should be done. And but I'm hopeful that now people are not ready to keep selling their birthright. And when I say birthright, your birthright is the fact that you are a Nigerian citizen with the right to vote. But you sell your vote for bread, for rice, for a few dollars. I think that's the big issue. So once we can educate people, then we can start to change the educational system. Oh yeah, so I read one book when I was in high school. This book has inspired me my entire life, from the time that I read it to now. It's called The Republic by Plato, and it talks about, I think I'm going to reference it in a lot because it's something that's so inspirational to me, but it just talks about the different types of responsibilities that a citizen should have to their nation, types of structures of governance that there are, and when and how it works and doesn't work. And when it talks about democracy, you can only have a successful democracy, and because democracy means that everybody has a say. And for everybody to have a say, they must have an ability to make an informed decision. And for them to make an informed decision, they must have a level of education, whether it's civic education or basic education, that gives them the understanding and the fundamentals to be able to take decisions that are for the good of themselves and for the good of the nation. I think you also have to have a level of patriotism, and you must value the collective even higher than yourself, because you then start to make decisions that are good for everybody rather than decisions that are good for you. And you see it sometimes, sometimes you do a program, because of my job, I'll do some agri programs, and the program helps people in the community, or maybe a road that was developed helps the people in the community. But people may not necessarily be satisfied with the road or with the program because they themselves personally did not benefit. In your head, you rationalize that yes, you did benefit because you have a road that opens up access. But to them, if they didn't get something personally for themselves that is not for somebody else, which usually ends up being money or a job for themselves directly from you, they feel like you've not done anything for them. So I feel like it's just a tug of war. And like I said, somebody has to be altruistic enough to think outside of themselves and do for the masses, to make sure that everybody, all the masses, have a level playing field, no matter what their just because they were born into a certain household should not mean that the benefit that they have far exceeds the opportunity that someone has to catch up to them. I mean, that's my thought. And even then, as you're providing those opportunities, you also have to understand that you have to get people enlightened to a point where they start to think of more advanced thought processes, philosophical viewpoints about society, their role in society, their responsibility to society, and society's responsibility to them, and that social contract is supposed to have. It's when you have that you can now start to truly, truly fight things like ritualism, yahoo, drug trafficking, sexual trafficking. But until then, it's every man for himself. and that really needs to change. I pray that our generation is not worse than the previous generation, but you have to take a decisive decision that it stops here. And I think that if we can galvanize enough youth that take that decision where we are more than those who decide not to, then there should be a sway. But let's see how it goes. I'll keep praying for Nigeria, and I'll keep taking actions towards a better Nigeria, and I hope that you will too. So that's been my thoughts on this. I think it's a bit of a heavy topic. I think the next topic I cover should be something light, because I can't always cover, this very emotionally draining topics when you think about where your nation stands and where you would like it to be. Sometimes it feels like a tough road, but we move and we'll keep moving. Anyway, I'll talk to you later. Make sure to like this video, subscribe. Take care. Bye.